Hi everyone, welcome to the PEB channel. My name is Joel Pettit, and today we're talking about IDES versus LDES. Now first, what do those two acronyms mean? L in LDES stands for legacy, I in IDES stands for integrated. It's that simple. And DES generally stands for disability evaluation system. Now these two systems, as well as the expedited DES, but we're not going to talk about that today. These two systems exist under the big umbrella of DES, and service members must choose one of them. Sometimes, in rare cases, are service members pushed or forced into one or the other system, but we're not going to go into that either, because again, today is just about understanding the difference between IDES and LDES. LDES, the legacy system, you must understand one thing about it. It segregates DoD from VA, and the VA will never interfere or even inform the legacy DES. That's how it works. Anyone who tells you otherwise doesn't understand the process. The reason it's like that is because legacy, meaning the old system before 2008, it did not work with the VA in order to create or rate conditions. Unfitting or not, they did not do that. So, hence the LDES, you are rated by the DoD. The DoD does the MEB report. The MEB sends it up to the PEB if you're found unfit. The members of the PEB would rate you, meaning they would simply take your symptoms, compare that to the VASRAD conditions, or rate you by analogy. Again, won't go into that because that gets really complicated, but it's all the DoD. The reason this is important, I would argue, is because some services rate certain conditions differently. I'll give you an example. This is a very simple one that I saw a lot when I was active duty and still see today, which is when it comes to diabetes. When someone has a severe diabetic, let's call it issue, and should go to the hospital, that translates into a higher disability percentage. The problem here is not everyone is a doctor, and some people, let's just say, gut it out, right? Well, maybe they should be going to the doctor or the emergency room, but they're not, or they think, you know what, my blood sugar isn't that bad, so let me do X, Y, or Z to fix the situation. I feel better. Okay, moving on. However, if, like most diabetics nowadays, are wearing a monitoring system, there's data that shows this person should have gone to the emergency room. They were close to dying. Luckily, they didn't. They should have. Why am I just saying this? Because the VA says, yes, that is the severity of your condition. Although you didn't, for better or worse, go to the emergency room, you should have. And that should have is an indication of how severe your condition is. The DoD does not necessarily do this. The DoD generally says, hey, it says you should have gone to the emergency room or to get this percentage twice in the last calendar year. Show us the admittance paperwork, show us the discharge paperwork, and we'll give you the higher percentage. Case closed, easy stuff. But if you gutted it out, you don't have that paperwork. And even if you give them the readouts from your monitoring system, doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And someone would say, well, how's that fair? When you think about it, it's a very nuanced point. When somebody says, read this rule, and it says in black and white, service member went to the emergency room twice in the last calendar year. That's either true or it's not. It's black and white. The problem is it comes in down to, are you going to apply that the letter of the rule or the spirit of the rule? And that's where the DoD and the VA generally differ. This happens with a lot of conditions. Hence why most individuals, when faced with this decision, choose the IDES. Now, of course, anyone watching this video, I don't know your case, so this is definitely not legal advice, because that would be the worst legal advice ever, because it's based on nothing. What you have to understand is you need to speak to your legal advisor, whoever that is, be they civilian or government, when you're choosing whether or not you are going to go into the IDES or the LDES. Because IDES, you have the military services coordinator, who works for the VA, who has you fill out the separation health assessment, part alpha. Then they have you fill out the 0819, which is telling the VA, hey, we're integrating this case. Then the 526EZ, which is all your conditions, not just your unfitting conditions or the conditions that don't meet retention standards, but any medical condition you've developed during service. The 0819 will only have your unfitting conditions listed on that, or the referred conditions. They use all that paperwork to schedule your CMP exams, your compensation and pension exams. And during those exams, the examiners generate the DBQs, the disability benefits questionnaires. They fill all those in, and that's what's sent to the VA to then generate your ratings. And when you're found unfit, that's when those ratings are used by the DoD. They just cut and paste them onto your findings. That could be in the Air Force, the 356, the Army, the 199, and in the Navy and Marine Corps, it's just your findings. So that's how the IDES works. But in LDES, none of that happens. They simply, the MEB writes up your MEB report, sends it to the PEB for adjudication. If you're found unfit, the medical officers at the board simply rate your unfitting conditions only, then you get your findings. So you can imagine how much faster that is. Now, the timeframes, they ebb and they flow. So the LDES, sadly enough, could take longer than the IDES. Some would say, how? Well, what if you have to appeal? Because you have the same appellate rights as you do in the IDES. And that's what people forget about, is that just because you're choosing the IDES doesn't mean it's slower than the LDES. It can be, it may be, but that's going to depend on how let's just call it, and I hate saying it this way, the journey of your case is. Because if your case is straightforward and everyone does their job just right and you're in the IDES, man, that thing can get done fast. But if you're in the LDES and every step of the way someone is screwing something up, you can imagine how slow that process can be, even without all the VA exams. So that's why when someone says, oh, is LDES quicker? The answer generally is, on the whole, it is. But is it guaranteed to be? By no means is it guaranteed to be. You can have people sticking their nose where it doesn't belong and complicating any type of case, IDES or LDES. But the main factor that separates the two, LDES, no VA involvement. IDES, 100% VA involvement. And if you're in the LDES, remember, you can sign up for the Benefits Delivery Upon Discharge program, that's Bravo Delta Delta, through the VA, and you can apply for your VA benefits before you get out, even though you're in the LDES. So that way it's like a, if you will, a Franken system that's somehow LDES plus BDD equals a weird IDES equivalent. It doesn't. But for those of you who are dead set on going to the LDES, the BDD program is out there as well, and you should know about it. But again, IDES versus LDES. No, nothing's perfect. No case is going to fly through either one of them. The key to understanding it is simply, if you are trying to be done with the VA process, 100% done with it, when you get out, and of course, the DES process to the DoD, the IDES offers you that. Whereas the LDES, it doesn't do that. It doesn't offer you that. You have to make that happen yourself. And as I've said, there are pluses and there are minuses to these two processes, just like there are in everything in life. So if you find yourself facing this and you don't know what to do, and you may have issues moving forward with your case, please go to my website, joelpettitlaw.com, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'd love to speak to you about your potential case. If you want to know more, please click here. Otherwise, thanks for watching, everybody, and have a great day.